Okay. So in this chapter, we are going to discuss the organizational units and or containers. What is an OU? Okay. OU is used to make it easier for you to do the administration of the objects in Active Directory. Let's say like you have a company and you are the network administrator. You want to create one OU for, let's say, for your staff who are like in HR, another OU for logistics, another OU for managers. So this is the meaning of OUs. So users, groups, computers, and other organizational units are placed within OU. So you can have an OU inside OU. So the organization creates OUs to mirror their organizational business structure. As I just mentioned, you have one OU for marketing, one OU for HR, one OU for finance, as you can see below. In the previous chapter, we have talked about how you promote your server to become a domain controller. Once you promote your server and it becomes a domain controller, there are several default containers which are created for you, such as shown in the figure below. What is a default containers? They are unique because they cannot be renamed or deleted or created by you or associated with a group policy. They are just created as part of the domain controller. Okay, such as the domain controllers. This is a default. Okay, this is created by default. Also, there are also hidden uh, default containers. Okay, that's why, because you don't need it for a system admin day-to-day job. That's why they hide it. It is hidden by default. Okay. Uh, One reason that these containers are hidden is to stop Active Directory users and computer consoles from looking messy and to organize to make it look neat. Okay. Also for security. To unhide them, you can unhide them. You can enable the advanced feature option from the view menu. So if you go to the view menu here and then choose advanced feature, okay, and then from there you can unhide these containers. This is some simple uses for some of the default containers in the Windows Server 2019. Computers is a default container for upgraded computer accounts, domain controller for DCs, foreign security principles, okay, which is also lost and found. Managed service account is a default container for managed service accounts. Delegation is very important. You are always asked to do delegation in your practical exam. Also, it's coming in the theory exam. It might come in your quiz too. What is delegation or delegating control? We all know that OUs
To
facilitate.
give permission,
We
right?
will, I will let you, yes, to give permission to an OU to do a task. So here, delegating control is to grant permission to a certain user or group of users in Active Directory. That's called delegation or delegation of control to an OU. But before you assign a permission to a user or a group of users, they need to move into an OU to be with, you can only give the delegation to the OU. So that's another benefit of OU. Okay, so the delegation of control, uh, before you do the delegation, it is required that before you assign permissions to a user or a group of users, they need to be moved into an OU, as you can see here in the diagram. Okay, with the delegation, you can grant permission to a certain user or a group of users in the Active Directory. This is the summary of this course. You can go over the summary. Okay, and okay, for this chapter or week 7, we are going to discuss information regarding accounts and groups. We are going to discuss about working with groups, nesting groups. You can have a group inside a group, like you can have an OU inside an OU. Same thing with groups. We'll talk about special identities, deleting a group also. Okay, working with groups. First of all, what are groups? Groups are collection of user accounts. So I can have like 5 users, I can put them in one group. And then I can assign permission once for the group instead of assigning it for each one. Okay. So members receive permissions given to the groups. Users can be members of multiple groups. Groups can be members of other groups also. So it's very flexible. Now we have in Windows Server 2019 two group types. We have distribution groups. These are non-security related groups. They are mainly created for the distribution of information to one or more persons. The most important one for us is the security groups because it deals with the security related groups created for the objective of granting resource access permissions to multiple users, and we'll see how. Also for the group scope by definition, it controls which objects the group can contain. The group scopes also limit objects to the same domain or permits objects from remote domains. And it controls the location in the domain or forest where the group can be used. These are the available Active Directory domain group scopes. We have domain local group, we have global group, and we have universal group. Now we'll talk about each one of them. The domain local group can have any of the following as members. It can have, you need to understand this and remember them. Under domain local, you can have user accounts, computer accounts, global groups from any domain in the forest, universal groups, domain local groups from the same domain also. These are all permitted to be in the domain local group. For the global groups, on the other hand, they can have user accounts, computer accounts, and other global groups from the same domain. Remember, from the same domain only. So in the domain local and in the global groups, we are still in the same domain. Now, when I go to the universal groups, they can contain following members: user accounts, computer accounts, and global groups from any domain in the forest. So we are going beyond the domain, we are going to the forest. And you can have also other universal groups. We have also something called defaulty groups. These are built in by default when you install Active Directory domain services. And they have predefined user rights and enables their members to perform certain system-related tasks, such as the backup or restore. So it makes your life easier, actually, because these groups are created by default and they have already predefined user rights. So if I want to give a user some backup rights, then I can move him to this group. Add accounts to these defaulty groups to grant users the same rights, as I just mentioned now. They are located in the built-in and users container object in Active Directory. Okay. The list of predefined groups you see in these containers varies depending on the installed services, of course. Nesting groups is you can have a group inside a group. Okay. So this is the best practice for group nesting. Okay. So first of all, you create a global group in each domain that contains all users needing access to the enterprise database. Then create an anniversary group in the parent domain, include each location's global group as a member. And then at the end, add the anniversary group to the required domain local group to assign the necessary permissions. Usually, we assign the necessary permissions to the domain local group. We have something also called special identities, and they exist in all computers running Windows Server. It is 2019 actually. All right. They do not appear as manageable objects in the Active Directory utilities. And you can use these special identities like groups by adding them to the access control list of system and network resources. These are the special identities. This is an example here. You can see here, creator owner. This is a special identity. Okay. You can remember this as an example. These are other special identities, authenticated users. These are all users with a valid local or domain user account whose identities have been authenticated. This special identity does not include the guest user. You have to remember this. Even if the guest has a password. We have creator owner. You can read the definition of each one. We have the dial-up, everyone, interactive, and then we have the network. These are for all users who currently logged on through a network connection. Okay. And then we have the remote desktop users who are currently logged on to the system using RDS terminal service. We have also converting. If you want to convert a group, it is easy. You can do it from the group itself. Properties, you can change the scope. Okay. From the group type, from type to another. And you can also change the group scope. You can see here, I can change domain local to universal or security distribution, but of course, if I need to do that, because they are different. To delete a group, remember, you delete the group, yes, but each group has SID. This SID is not deleted. So even if I delete a group and then I create another group with the same name, they will have different SIDs. It's like two persons having the same name, but they will have different ID numbers, of course. Okay. So you need, if you create a new user, new group, you have to reconfigure all the permissions. Okay. And when you delete a group, does not mean that you delete the objects that are members of the group. And you are not deleting the users actually. You are just deleting the group. This is the lesson summary, summarizing the topics that we have discussed here. You can have a look at it and please look at it and